Lions Rock Productions.
Hey, this is Jon Leon Guerrero. Please pardon the background noise. Niko's playing Mac Miller really, really loud. He was a big fan of Mac Miller's, and I am too. And I'm going to miss his artistic sensibilities, and really am saddened by the fact that we're not going to be able to see a long journey from him. And but I'm not as affected as Niko. He really liked Mac Miller, so rest in peace, Mac Miller. Today's episode of the Break It Down show features producer and guitarist Cam Perridge from a lot of things, but most recently for me, from AgapéSoul and their latest album, Conversations. It's a very special record, and the world seems to be loving it as much as I do. It's charting all over the place and doing very well, and we want to keep that momentum up. We've had the captain of the ship, Daryl Anders, on recently. He's a dexterous bassist and a very thoughtful band leader, and I'm looking forward to having the rest of the band on the show, too. Keyboardist Eamon Flynn can tell you a story on his instrument and really guide your emotions, and is a joy to listen to. Songwriter and vocalist Zoe Ellis raps tremendous capability around a truly unique voice, and her lyrics are so sincere that they challenge you to be real with yourself. I've been a fan of hers for 30 years, and those things have remained true throughout her stages of life, and mine as a listener. Aaron Green as a drummer is so damn funky, so tasty, so capable of nailing rhythm and shaping it. I think he's among the best of his generation in the Bay Area and in the world, and I don't say that lightly. Today, though, we go in with Cam Perridge. And I think you're going to love his adventurousness, his outlook, and his dedication to the music. We had some sound issues on this episode, didn't realize we were breathing on the mic in spots, so please hang in there with me. It doesn't last too long. On the other hand, I think his inspiration will last the rest of my life. I hope it touches you as well. So please enjoy it, and go to AgapéSoul.com and buy your copy of Conversations, and buy a copy for someone you love. Take it away, Cam.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Bryce
This
Vine.
is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick
This
Marotta.
is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is Jon Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Cam Perridge, and you're listening to The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with Jon Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Cam Perridge has over 2,000 gigs and sessions under his belt as a guitarist, producer, and engineer, most recently at Colonel Music Studio. And for the band AgapéSoul, whose new album Conversations is number one on the UK R&B chart, and it's the number one R&B album downloaded on Amazon this week.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He's got, get this, a BS in zoology from the University of Glasgow, and he came here to play guitar after abruptly quitting a PhD program.
True.
So he's got brains as well as fingers, I would say.
You know, the funny thing about that is there was two guys in that program, me and this other guy. I've completely forgotten his name. I quit to be a professional musician. He quit to be a professional weightlifter. And he wasn't even built. I can at least play guitar a little bit. My professor must have been like, what have I done?
Yeah.
The only thing I can remember about that guy is one time we had an hors d'oeuvre called a kick-ass olive when we went out to a lab dinner. Mm-hmm. He wanted to make a whole restaurant that was kick-ass things.
Okay.
That's it. You know, you have memories. Maybe you'll delete that from the show. It's okay.
No, that's staying. That's the spirit. You know, the guy who's going to do that, I don't know what's going to happen to him.
Maybe he'll call in if he's listening. He can identify himself and be, I was that kick-ass olive guy 30 years ago.
I'm kick-ass olive guy. So kick-ass olive guy, if you're out there, let us know.
He wasn't 30, he's 21
Wow.
years.
Well, Niko's joining me.
Hello,
tonight.
I'm Niko.
Pete's not here with us today. He's in L.A. where he lives. And he would love that we're going to eat and drink and be merry. But we're also going to talk about a lot of things. You have the record out now, which is great. You were, according to Daryl, instrumental in every piece of that record.
It was a labor of love. It was, I don't know, close to 3 years of recording, writing, soul searching. Daryl and I talked every day for probably most of that time.
Yeah.
We tracked at a big studio, then we did a lot of overdubs at my studio, and huge amounts of work. So rewarding, just phenomenal. I don't even know where to start. Ask questions, I'll answer them.
Well, it starts with the fact that CD is absolutely fucking spectacular. It is so good. We've seen you live. We saw you live a couple weeks ago at Luca, which is our favorite place to be at
I love that
6:30 in the evening, because they have some great acts that come through there, and you guys killed.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love playing there. It's super wonderful. Very receptive audience. Just a great space. A really good feeling.
It is a great feeling. It's a nice outdoor vibe. It's everything that you want in a casual music setting for the player and the audience participant. And they have barbecue. So, not too bad.
Sold.
Let's rewind to your start as a guitar player. What were you doing that drew you to the guitar?
It started when I was a boy.
Yeah, no. Well, my dad played guitar. He still does.
Okay.
And it was just always around. I think I picked up a little bit when I was 5 and didn't. But when I really got serious about it was we got a video recorder. The first time we ever got a video recorder, I was supposed to record a wildlife show, and I got it wrong. And it was about roadrunners. Instead, I recorded a documentary about the band Kiss. I was 11.
Yes.
And my brain just exploded.
Okay.
That must have been fall, and my mom bought me a Kiss record, and she worked in a winery in the Highlands of Scotland, which was in a castle. And I used to just like go run through the rooms and just like play with the stuff there, like dig through their possessions, like, terrible, like a little Scottish animal. And there was a guitar there, and they let me take it home. And so I started playing that, and I got this record. It's called Destroyer. It has like Detroit Rock City. I learned every single note on that record just by myself. Just picked it up, all the bass lines, the lead, the rhythm, everything. I learned every note. So that was the beginning of me as a guitar player and obsession. And things weren't always that easy as a kid, as a teenager. My home life was a little difficult at times, and music was my best friend.
Yeah,
and it was there for me. Has been there for me. I started when I was 11. I'm 45 now. It was like 34 years.
Wow.
And
at 11, you learned all of Destroyer.
Yeah, every note.
Okay.
I could probably play it all now. I don't know what I learned last week, but yeah, if that's time well spent or not.
Would you say that your Destroyer experience still influences your guitar playing?
I don't know.
Or in 34 years, have you created some distance?
I think there's other records that were much more formative for me as a listener and as a musician, whatever. But
no shit.
So
I'm just giving you a hard time.
I don't even know. Actually, that's a good question. I mean, those are memorable songs. You know, you can hum every guitar part, every musical part in that record. You could sing right now. You know, still
got it.
So we do a weekly segment on this show called The Album Fight. And what we do is we get 3 of us together and we'll take 2 albums with typically the same number of tracks.
Okay.
And we'll do track 1, and track 1 is round 1. And we'll score it on a fight card. So 10-point must, 2-point deduction for a knockdown, etc.
Uh-huh.
We do everything except nobody gets knocked out because you got to go the distance with the record. But this week, the week that we are recording this episode, our album fight was Kiss Dynasty.
See, that's the disco record, dude.
I know. But we put it up against the Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams. Not my card. And the funny thing was, we had our guest judges were a guy named Mike LePerry, who's our friend, and a guy named Scott Pelkey, who's our friend. And he lives not far from here. They both live not far from here. But Scott is not home very often. He is the backstage manager for the Eagles.
Oh.
So he's on the road all the time. So when we finally said, hey, when are you going to be home? Okay, great. Come do an album fight with us instead of spending that time with your kids. That's what he did, and we had a good time with it. But the way that it was originally planned out was Pete was going to do the album fight with Mike and Scott, and then he asked me to host, and he could Skype, but the guys would be here. And I said, well, if the guys are going to be here, then I'll just do the fight. And he said, okay. Here's the card. And I went, Dynasty? I mean, the only saving grace to Dynasty was it had Anton Fig on it. And if that's the only saving grace to the album,
Well,
is the session guy that you bring in to be the, to fill in for Peter Criss, who had been in a car accident and broke his hand or something. But
there's all kinds of session guys who played on Kiss. So Robin Ford played on some Kiss records. The thing about Dynasty was the only song was I Was Made for Loving You. I can't remember any other songs on that record.
That's true.
So
I just did the album fight the day before yesterday, and I can't remember any songs on that album.
Sweet Dreams had a few, though, I think. I think it was more than one big song.
Save Your Love was on Dynasty as well, which was pretty good. But that was it.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, Sweet Dreams. Also, lackluster as far as Eurythmics or Annie Lennox records goes.
Really, but big hits, though. I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard it in years.
It had Sweet Dreams, and it had something else on it. I don't remember either. But that was it. And the rest of it was Dave Stewart figuring it out, and it sounded pretty good. But, they hadn't yet gotten into their groove and grown their confidence as an act that they would. I love Annie Lennox a lot.
Oh, what's not to love, yeah.
And, she was just figuring it out, dressing in suits and being androgynous.
Yeah. And that's funny, and the guys are in makeup and Kiss.
Yeah. Right. So,
makeup, admittedly, but still makeup.
Yeah. It was a cultural conversation as much as a musical one. But it's funny that you bring up Kiss, because we just had that album fight. Also because you're not the first just monster of a musician who you would never guess started off with Kiss, who started off with Kiss.
Yeah. And, I thought about what we might talk about today, and I didn't know we were going to talk about Kiss.
Yeah. Well, we're here talking about
times.
Yeah.
Yes, their cultural significance.
Yeah.
More than their musical significance. Anyway, so now you are 11. And you have found a safe space, and you begin to identify yourself as a guitar player.
Yeah.
How was that for the rest of your formative years?
It's something that's rewarded me.
It was all-consuming?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I was a bike racer when I was a kid. Before that, I wanted to be in the Tour de France, and that all went out the window. Everything went to guitar. I used to practice like 6 hours a day. Yeah. Not all the time. Sometimes only be a little bit, but I've definitely spent a lot of time in the substrates. And it was weird because I was very isolated. I'm in the Highlands of Scotland. There's very little music there. I mean, bagpipes and stuff. But as far as rock music or just kids playing guitar, very little of that.
You had to really seek it out.
Yeah, it was just, I didn't seek it out in the community. I sought it out on records. They were like my friends.
Yeah.
Like one time years later after I moved to America, I was running in Pacific Heights, and I see this guy, little bald guy with Doc Martens. As I'm running, I realize it's Joe Satriani. And those records are my friends. Those musicians in my head were like my friends, and I saw him like, Joe, it's you. And this like sweaty Scotsman looking down at you. I had really long hair at that point. He was like, what the fuck? But no, those were, my girlfriend's a musician, and she once said, do you think we've given up too much? As a musician, I quit a PhD, I lost a country, I lost a marriage, I've given my energy to this never satisfied thing. And she said, do you think we've given too much as musicians? And I'm like, no, because it's given it all back to me and more. It's, it's given me community, it's given me a sense of purpose. I still love music. I'm still a fan of music before anything else. The reason I want to make records and make a guitar noise is because I would be on the school bus just listening to songs, just going like, oh my God, just how these 2 piano notes started a chorus. I have an all-consuming love for it, and I still do.
Well, it sounds like it's been a friend back.
Yeah, fully.
And so for everything that you've given it has been there for your attention and your growth and your reflection and all that stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
So, as we make our way through your formative years, what else were you listening to? What pulled you out of
Kiss?
Yeah.
Well, I worked I said my mom worked at a winery. I ended up working there. The first day I worked there, the guy had the first 2 Suzanne Vega records on a cassette, and I ended up getting those. Those are a huge part of me as a musician, I think.
Okay.
It's funny because people know me as funky, and that stuff is not funky at all.
Yeah.
But it's perfectly constructed. If you think about, food, a perfectly nuanced meal, exactly the right amount of seasoning, quality ingredients, those records are put together just beautifully, and everything supports the songs and the singer. So that's probably the biggest compliment I ever got as a guitar player is I'm a singer's guitar player.
Wow.
And, which I love that.
Yeah, that's terrific.
And I think that might be because of just listening to music that I felt really supported singers. What else? I don't even know, dude.
Did you identify that at that point when you're listening to Suzanne Vega, that you gravitated toward the technical mastery that you were hearing?
I don't know. As a listener now, I still like listen to stuff, and I'll get in producer mode and be like, oh, they put the reverb here, or they did blah, whatever. Yeah. But I'll still listen to it and just be like euphoric over how a chorus comes in. Mm-hmm. Just simple, spinal reaction. It's not in any way intellectual. So I think I always receive music on a lot of different levels. I'm not super analytical always. Sometimes I'm just like, just rocking. This makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'll later try and work out why. But I don't know.
Though, I think in a musician's journey, you start off with that thing that is approachable, that allows you to begin to express yourself on the instrument. And then once you get your legs under you, then you start to try to grow those chops by getting more adventurous. Bass players at some point will discover Jocko or Marcus or some virtuoso who takes you to the next level or makes you understand, the guys who make you realize what you don't know.
Sure. Outliers that are so extremely, they basically calibrate your center.
Well said. They calibrate your center. Who do you think that was for you?
I don't have specific artists. There's so much, and a lot of it is reactionary as well. Sometimes I'll hear stuff and be like, oh, that's weak or overdone or diluted or too intense. So I think what really for me was, when I was growing up, even younger than that, British pop radio was really prevalent. It still is. If you go to the British Isles, everybody has the radio on all the time. And it's not just like, classic rock or smooth jazz or whatever. It's like super diverse, and it still happens to this day. So I think that the radio in the British Isles was so diverse, though always song-centric, that probably was my biggest formative thing. And I had like a cassette player, and I would record the top 40 literally by hand, like pushing down buttons. But art, geez, I don't even know where to start.
That was your first foray into engineering.
With a Maxell C90. Right. No, it was, I guess. So I don't have a good answer to that. There's certain people who are like, I'm a blues guitar player, so B.B. King, but I don't have those aha moments. It's like, because I was a fan of pop, basically pop music is anything. It could be from heavy metal to country to whatever that just supports a song, where the song and the singer is the central thing. So I listen to
you just had a very wide variety of stuff sort of crammed at you at a point where your attention span was wide open for it.
It still is. If I hear something new and different, I try and get my arms around it. There's certain music genres I just physically don't like. Like modern country just doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
But, I heard there's a singer called Kiara. You should listen to her stuff. It's like super processed and weird. Almost sounds like a backwards electronic leprechaun, but it's still cool. And I heard it and I was like, this is like 2 years ago. And I'm like, man, I just want to get my arms around this. So I've always had an embracing thing about music.
Backwards electronic leprechaun.
Whatever that is.
You should. Well, I'll tell you the song. You can maybe soundbite that in a minute. You'll know exactly. There's this song. Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
Okay.
So just a curious nature. I'm receptive to pretty much anything. At least I'll give it an honest listen. Sometimes I'm like, no, that's not me.
Did you have music in school?
No.
Not really.
No, it was.
So you did have to seek it out on your own.
Oh, fully. Yeah, the music program in my high school was like, oh my goodness, dude. No, it was terrible. There was nothing. You know? There was some sort of very limited classical thing, but no, I played recorder when I was 5, so there was lessons then, but it was I had to play, green sleeves.
Yeah.
With reedy, shaky hands. So no, it was fully just me.
Okay.
I just loved it, and I don't even know.
It was you from the very start.
Yeah.
If you didn't have a music program in your school to support you, you had to go out and find the stuff. Did you have a guitar teacher in Scotland?
No. I've had 2 guitar lessons my whole life.
You got to be kidding.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm the term is autodidact. I'm one of those guys who messes around and teaches themselves things. So that's how I learned how to record and produce. I just taught myself.
I think that's a multisyllabic synonym for motherfucker.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
because I think that was our reaction when we saw you live for the first time. We went, look at this motherfucker.
Jeez, you guys are too kind. Thank you.
So,
fully self-taught.
At some point, though, you decided that Scotland was not going to feed you the way you needed to be fed, and you were going to chase the dream, and you were going to come here.
Mm-hmm.
Why here? By here, I mean where we are now, which is the West Coast. Did you come here originally, or did you land in New York, or what'd you do?
So I was in a funky rock band, so I had found funk, got past Suzanne Vega at that point.
Okay.
It's kind of like Lenny Kravitz meets Jamiroquai.
Was it a revelation for you when you found funk?
No more than anything else.
Okay.
And everything's a revelation to some degree, like old blues. Like, records of my formative years, Hendrix stuff, Beatles, that was... But if you think about how eclectic all of that is, always eclecticism. So I don't know that it was any more of a revelation than when I heard, anything else. Things that resonate, I get as much of it as I can.
Yeah.
Why did I come here? Okay, I was in a band.
Wait, it wasn't the Average White Band?
No, oh my goodness, no. Those guys are phenomenal. I'd only heard that one song. That one song was on the radio. What is the Pick Up the Pieces?
Yeah. That was it?
Yeah. So none of the other stuff, even like Cut the Cake or something, which is pretty well known here, didn't exist.
Aren't they from Scotland?
Yeah. But the flip side of that is I didn't hear like Styx or Grateful Dead until I came here, which is wonderful.
No kidding.
None of that. That didn't make it over there, and the Average White Band were famous somewhere else. So I was in a funky rock band with this singer who was phenomenal, really charismatic guy. We're really good friends, and he worked in the Glasgow Art Museum, and I was doing a PhD, but really I was just kind of taking off and going playing guitar. And one day we sat in this lemon yellow room in the Kelvin Grove Art Museum. You can Google it if you want to. And he's like, my dream's to go to America with the band. And I was like, cool, I'm in.
Let's go.
Yep.
Yes.
And he went, well, where are we going to go? And we were like, New York, it's kind of cold.
Yeah.
LA, it's big. Let's go to San Francisco. So we didn't know it was a secondary music market, in San Francisco or whatever. So and then 3 months later we flew here. The whole band.
Well, it's secondary by certain definitions, but it's primary to those of us who are here.
There's like LA and Atlanta are, more like primary markets in terms of the volume and whatever else. Volume. So I don't mean the importance, I just mean like the size of the scene.
Yeah. So when you arrived here, what does one do when one arrives here from Scotland?
Well, I came here, I had 2 guitars and 1 pair of pants, $300, and 90
That's priorities right there. 2 guitars, 1 pair of pants.
And what did we do? We stayed in a shitty residence club in the Tenderloin.
Because if you play the hell out of this guitar, you're not going to need to wear pants.
Or these are good pants. I can wear these pants. These pants are so good, I can wear them every day. We came here, and drummer and the bass player didn't make it. Drummer was a good guy. Bass player was an alcoholic, and we didn't know because that's Scotland, right?
Yeah. Wow. It's a lot of ways to hide.
Yeah. No, fully. And there are people. Do I hear the sound?
There's a piece of fish waiting for us.
Okay,
we're going to pause this. Where we left off was you were telling us about
came to
the
America.
trek here. Mm-hmm. Your bass player and your drummer did not make it.
Yep, me and the singer did. And I think the division there was that, you're in your early 20s, you're in Scotland, you're partying pretty hard, but it's all about where it is in your life. And so it was, me and the singer, sure, we were partying hard, but it was never part of music. It was never part of, it was like, you don't go swimming and play tennis at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was always a separate thing. Whereas those guys, well, the bass player in particular, was a central part of their life. The drummer was, he might listen to this. I don't think he didn't have the same problem the bass player did.
Yeah.
Whatever. Ended up here. Bass player and drummer didn't work out. We got a French drummer who remains to this day one of my best friends, and a bass player from Boston, and the band stayed together till 2004.
Terrific.
We never went famous. Rags to rags.
Yeah, rags to rags. But in the meantime, you were learning to communicate and getting chops together and having a great
practicing like we rehearsed 4 times a week. And
lived in the woodshed.
Yep. And a lot of my work ethic today came from that drummer.
And so it was a funky rock band? Mm-hmm. What kind of tunes were you playing?
Originals, all originals.
It was all original?
Yeah.
Terrific.
I don't have any to play today, but that's what we were doing. The singer pulled the band apart in 2004, and at that point I started doing the sideman thing. The first artist I auditioned down the phone with my unamplified guitar, like tink, tink, tink. I ended up being her MD and just kept playing. At that point, I didn't have a driver's license. I hadn't got my full citizenship together yet. I did 75 gigs on Bart with a Fender Twin. I'm not playing on Bart, but taking Bart to gigs.
Yeah.
And I was hungry. I was
hiking a Fender Twin onto a Bart train.
I went through at least 3 pairs of wheels. I wore them off.
Wow.
My back was in better shape then too.
Yeah.
And I just kept playing and kept gigging and, kind of moved up the echelons and whatever.
Where did you stay? How did you eat?
Oh, I worked as a nanny, so I lived with the family for the first 5 years I was
Fantastic.
And
Thank you, nanny family.
I'm still in contact with him.
Yeah.
I was in their kid's wedding. He's 27 now. I'm serious.
This is a great story.
On his wedding, I remembered a song.
Well, you've been here 34 years, right?
No, I've been here 21.
You've been playing guitar 34 years.
I've been here 21 years.
21 years. So 21 years, a guy who you're nannying can grow up and be old enough to get married.
Yep. And then I had room as of 2000. I had roommates. I lived in an apartment, whatever. So.
Yeah. How did you get the nanny gig? That was clutch.
I had a friend who was doing it, and they said I should put an advert. There was a place you could put a little paper advert.
Yeah.
And
that was that.
Yeah, that was a crazy household. That was
amazing.
I was a very stabilizing influence in a very tumultuous household, so they were really thankful for me, and I was really thankful for them.
You were the stabilizing influence.
Very much so.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we don't need to get into the details, but yeah, and I still know them. The wild thing about them, this is so random, sorry, but their name is Birnbaum, which is a Polish name that means pear tree, okay?
Okay.
And I found out just last fall that my name, Perridge, is actually a contraction of pear tree ridge. So this whole time we were all pear trees.
Wow.
It made me really happy to learn
That's
that.
pretty cool.
Yeah, connectivity.
And you're in touch to this day.
I am.
So I think what I'm learning about you, and you're in touch with the French drummer still, and he's one of your best friends to now, is you leave a trail.
I guess.
You gather. Maybe you're like the Pied Piper.
Something that would didn't gather rats, though. I don't know if that's the best.
Well, speaking figuratively.
I get what you mean, though. Aggregation through music. There we go.
The aggregation, yes. Okay. So as you continue to aggregate, you start to build up a head of steam. You eventually get a driver's license. You can drive to a gig now, which means now you can gig in the Napa Valley.
Yep.
Parts elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. I was more on time when I was taking BART because I would get there early and whoever was there already would pick me up. So I was always super on time.
Yeah.
Whereas you start to drive you into traffic, whatever else.
Yeah. Get caught up in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But you can at least haul around a little more gear.
That is true.
At what point did you really start to feel like you had built up a head of steam, or did you feel that way the whole time?
I don't know that I even thought of it in those terms.
Okay.
I was just working and getting in better situations. There was a point where I felt like the people I was playing with weren't really preparing, weren't really giving the music what it deserved. And not long after that, I got a really pivotal gig. There's a place in downtown Oakland. I can't remember what it's called now. It closed, but the band leader called a singer, and she called me. And we hadn't even played together, but she called me. And through that, I got a residency gig. What is that place called?
No kidding.
Yeah, and so we played there 3-4 times a month.
It's not there anymore.
It's not there anymore. It's on 13th. It's just off the Broadway. I can't remember what it's called. It's got a big brick back area.
Huh.
I'll remember after the podcast is done.
Right.
And so all these artists came through and they would always use the band. And that became, through that I met so many good players.
What an amazing gig.
Next level players. And that was a really pivotal point.
That's a great, great gig.
Yeah. Maxwell's Lounge.
Maxwell. I was going to say Maxwell's.
Yeah.
That was the first place. Nico has deserted this podcast because he went to go take a shower. But that was the first place. My friend Corey Jacobs, he's in L.A., but he called me one day, grew up here. We grew up playing together. And he said, hey, man, I'm playing a showcase at Maxwell's tomorrow night. So I said, okay, we'll be there. And I don't know what Christy had to do, but she had to do something. And she left me at home with a 12-year-old kid. And I said, suit up, let's go. We're going to Maxwell's. And so I took him into Maxwell's. And, of course, we couldn't stay all night.
Yeah.
But for the first half of the set, the place was still a restaurant. So I could walk in there with my kid. And, of course, I wanted to be appropriately attired. And I wanted him to, too. So he did suit up. And he walked into that place. He was the best dressed kid in that place.
Nice.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
All the waitresses were like, hi.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to try and get him hooked on this, and maybe we'll make him a discerning appreciator of the sartorial arts. But if you're there, I mean, that was a place where guys from elsewhere who were coming through would have a showcase.
Oh yeah, I played with her, and you end up playing behind a bunch of different artists.
Let's unpack the musical part of that first, because the social part is easy. You're here from Scotland. You're getting a gig where people come through. You get to meet a lot of new people, but you get all kinds of new playing situations.
Right.
What did that do to you?
Well, there's no substitute for being on the bandstand. When you've been spent thousands and thousands of hours, what you basically do is you're making new arrangements on the fly. So you have songs, there's no rehearsal. It's like, we're going to do this song, but maybe this song fades in the record. How are we all going to end it? How are we going to make sense of it as a band? We're going to stretch it. We're going to flip it. And so you learn to arrange on the fly.
Right.
And
respond to audibles.
Yeah. That's what
look for hand signals.
Exactly. Or not even, just like you kind of just...
You feel it.
Yeah. And I think that's what differentiates, people who've done like thousands of gigs to, weekend warrior hobby players, is that you just, like a cat, you fall on your feet and you learn to arrange on the bandstand. And that was probably the biggest thing that
That's what made the Beatles great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a number of things, but yes.
Yeah.
Innate songwriting would be another one.
Well, there was that. But one could argue that the songwriting came also as a result of the hours that they did. I mean, when they were in Munich, they had to play 10 hours in a row, and they couldn't really take breaks because every time they took a break, there weren't people walking into the place. So their job was to be the attraction. And that meant, hey, I'm going to go have a smoke. You three take over.
Yeah.
And the ability just to keep that going, that builds up a stamina in you.
Oh, fully.
And an intuition. It's just ridiculous. And you got a dose of that because you're there night after night with different playing situations. So it's one thing to be in a band and get to feel that out with a band. But when you have a brand new influence kind of thrust upon you, night after night after night, it makes you adjust. It makes you...
Well, that gig also really allowed me to play catch up as far as the repertoire. So, stuff that people who grew up here, people who played music for 20 years here, had learned, I was still playing catch up and stuff like that. So, like millions of popular R&B tunes from the 80s and 90s, I learned all that. So that really enriched me as a player. I mean, I already was, fairly up on R&B and pop, but that was really a crash course in that, because you'd learn, 20, 25 tunes a week. And sure, I mean, some of the musicians probably knew them already, but for me, I was just absorbing it all.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge part for me as well.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
That'll make you funky.
Yeah, there's a few different things that make you funky. I mean, if you're talking about funky, one of the pivotal things is there's a record called James Brown's Funky People. It's like B-sides of Maceo and stuff. That's a record I really shedded on a lot, and probably 2005, I lived with that record a lot, so that was a big part.
Where were you actually living? Where were you residing in the early 2000s?
I was living in the outer Richmond district of San Francisco in an apartment with 4 or 5 other people.
Okay.
And I was working as a nanny, I was surfing a lot, and I was playing guitar.
Surfing and playing guitar.
That's all I was doing.
Terrific.
Didn't play any surf music, but...
This is a great... Man, I love this story. I'm jealous of your life. You bounced around as a nanny. I just became a subscriber of a YouTube channel. It was pretty cool. I'm going to see if I can dig it up here. And I promise I'm going somewhere with it because it's thematic. This guy makes videos. I've seen 2 of them, and they were edited beautifully, just amazing. And he's a drummer, and he, I believe, is in Nashville.
Okay.
But what he's done is he's analyzed his career as a drummer for all to admire. So he goes back to the first year that I came to Nashville, and I think he made like $4,000. And he was sleeping on a mattress in a basement with a guy who, and just had that story where he was making sacrifices and really just living for it. And each time he went from one year to the next, he'd make a little bit more money. The gigs would get a little more stressful. He'd have a few more auditions that failed or bands that started and then stopped. And, as his wallet grew, his stress level grew, his ability to, maybe do a few more things because he had a little more resource came with, now I have to drag this bed around. It's not just a mattress anymore. And Oh, it's great. And then he goes back to that year I made $4,000. Was a glorious year. I loved that year so much. I had one pair of shoes. Yeah. You know, it's just great. So I love hearing this story. Where do you live now?
El Sobrante.
Yeah. That's nice there.
Yeah, it's the downtown's terrible, but the neighborhoods are wonderful.
Is the downtown terrible? Oh, I'm thinking
my God.
of Pinol's downtown.
Pinol's downtown's fine.
Yeah.
But El Sobrante's downtown's terrible. No, it's awful. But the neighborhoods are wonderful.
Yeah. Well, that's why you spend some time on Solano and in Albany.
Exactly, yeah. Pinol, Solano, those are our spots. Yeah. Japantown.
You never left the Bay Area.
No.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Put down roots. I love it here. This is my home.
Yeah. It is your home. What did you leave behind in Scotland? Are your folks still there?
They are. Career. Yeah. Biology career, family. Yeah. But it's still there. You know, I go back. Not the career. I don't care about that.
You just came back from there.
I did. My dad's a musician.
Yeah.
He went on tour for 3 days while we were there.
Did he really?
He came to music.
So your dad doesn't just play guitar. He plays guitar.
Well, he wouldn't tell it that way. He's a folk singer, guitar player.
Okay.
And he played guitar my whole life, but he wasn't serious about it until in his early 60s.
Okay.
So so
the guitar was an accompanying instrument for his voice.
It was just a tiny hobby for him that kind of grew. So a lot of times people come up to me and say, "Man, I love guitar, but I haven't really started, or I love music or whatever." And I'm like, "It's never too late to start." My dad's proof of that. And
so when you say he didn't take it seriously until age 60,
he didn't. He didn't do a lot of time. He didn't really have a lot of facility. Didn't do a whole lot of gigging. Like hardly any. He just played at home a little bit.
And so at age 60, he's really started to get after it.
Formed I think got on a sort of whatever community college program or something. Met a couple of people at a folk jam. Formed a band. Made his first record. Gigged a ton, out in the trenches, and then the second record I helped him with.
Okay.
So they were recording in Scotland in the Highlands, and they sent the stuff to me to mix. And so I collaborated with my dad on a record in 2012, which was just exceptional.
That is fantastic.
Yep. I auto-tuned my own father. Inaudibly, but how often do you get to do that? Pitch correct a parent.
That's terrific.
But it was wonderful because I got to see them grow.
That's like when you take your kid bowling and you put up the thing so he can't throw a gutter ball. That is awesome.
Only in a couple tunes. Damn, sorry for telling everybody.
Oh, I'm sure it was just a very minor correction.
But it was wonderful to watch their progression. Like my dad and I would be talking just about recording techniques. By that point, I'd moved into producing. We can come back to that. But so it was wonderful to watch the progression and made us very close. So
I played in a band with my dad. I was a pretty rebellious teenager. I was an asshole as a teenager. And my dad he's a sax player, plays a little bit of guitar, and he sings. So he and my Uncle Andy, who's a terrific guitar player, always played together. My Uncle Andy, in fact, is not really my uncle, but he's my uncle more than anybody else because he's always around and he's always, he's in my family. The experience that I had, I was quite an ass. And I moved out when I was 18, the minute I could, just because I couldn't stand it there anymore. The oppression and the tyranny and all of that shit. But I was, struggling and doing it and drinking most of whatever we were going to get paid when we had a gig. And at some point, my dad said, "Hey, I have a gig and I need a drummer. I need you to come play with me." He didn't ask me if I would do it. He said, "I need you to come and play with me." So I said, "All right, I'll come and play with you. What is it?" And he said, "You know what it is. This is all the shit you've been hearing all your life. So get ready to play a lot of bossa novas." And I was like, "I'm down. We'll do it." And I went and we got there and I said, "Okay, what time do we start?" "Oh, we're not going to start for another hour and a half. They're going to feed us prime rib first." And I was like, "What?" And then at the end of the gig, and we had a good time, and we were smiling a lot, and we played bossa. And turns out I love bossa novas. And then I got paid some actual money.
Wow! And
I was like, "What are you guys doing next weekend?" And before I knew it, I had rekindled and established. My dad is, he's my best friend. We established that in the same thing that you're talking about with a musical collaboration. You bring a piece of your soul that is different. You expose yourself differently. You're working together, and it's really special.
Yeah, it's true. Similar story.
So does that mean that you're looking forward to further collaborations? Is he continuing to get better as a guitar player? Does he keep after it?
He is. I don't know that we'll work together in that way again. I'm not sure. When I was home, I was teaching him about how to mix. We use the same recording program, so I was showing him some different stuff, and I want to encourage him in that way as well. I might mix his next record. I don't know. I might want him to do it and just give him some pointers.
Okay. Still collaborative nonetheless.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's terrific. That is a great story. I stopped playing the drums to raise my family. Mm-hmm. Not to raise my family. I stopped playing the drums and got distracted. And then realized that I hadn't played my drums in 20 years.
Wow.
And it was when we started doing this podcast, one of the guests that we were happy to get was Dwayne Wiggins.
Oh, wonderful.
And while we were doing, I've told this story on the podcast, so for our listeners, just hit the fast forward button about 4 times because I'm going to tell Cam the story. But we were at Dwayne's place, and we had just met him, and he agreed to do the podcast, but we weren't going to do it right then. Mm-hmm. And he said, we'll do it next week. But what are you guys doing later? Because there's going to be a rehearsal here. You guys should check it out. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. No, it wasn't the Tonys. It was just a rehearsal for a gig that was, thrown together. But that gig included Leah Ticey.
Awesome.
And Levi Caesar. So, who played on Conversations, I should plug.
That was my idea. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
I'd said, Daryl, when we were working on the song Fruitvale Gumbo, which is kind of a hybrid of Oakland and New Orleans, and he'd got one of the Nevilles on there. I love that song. I do too. Yeah. And, for guitar, I was like, dude, you should get Levi in this. It would be great. Yeah. And so he called him, and Levi was on two of the songs. But yeah, that's how much I was in producer mode rather than guitar player mode. I was like, yeah, it was my idea.
Yeah.
Levi.
That's great.
I tell you how I first met Levi. I played in church for this one church, True Vine Ministries. Shout out.
Uh-huh. Where is it?
It's we meet at McClymonds right now in Oakland. I've been playing there for 8 years, I think. But one morning, a band came through, and a quartet band, church quartet. Mm-hmm. Their guitar player was phenomenal, just wonderful, saucy, solid rhythm. And afterwards, I was like, dude, you sound great. Who are you? He's like, my name's Levi. And I didn't know he was that Levi. He was just like a ripping, solid, humble guy. Yeah. And, that's, the masters that walk amongst us.
That's right.
Yep.
Oh, man.
But yeah.
So that particular day, Dwayne said, Levi's in the band. Do you know Levi? And I said, no, but I really want to know Levi. And he goes, well, stick around and you can meet him. And I said, okay, great. So we had about a half an hour to kill. So Pete and I took our fat asses to Wingstop. That's what we did. Not a sponsor. We just love Wingstop. And then when we came back, the band was setting up. And Dwayne lives in a big soundstage. I don't know if you've ever been there, but he's got like a loft apartment that sits above a huge soundstage where there are rehearsals. And the riser and the drum kit and everything was already there. Everybody was setting up around it. And I saw Levi, and he was busy, so I didn't bother him. I just sat down. And then I looked over and I saw Juan Escovedo, and I knew Juan from years back. So I went over and sort of reintroduced myself to him because I hadn't seen him in 20 years. And, that was fun. But then I sort of scooted out of the way, and the drummer who was playing with him that night called and said, I'm stuck on 980 behind the airport, and I'm going to be like 20 minutes. So they were all ready to go, and Juan pointed at me and said, he plays the drums.
Yeah, he knows. Was it a bossa nova song?
And I was like, no, it wasn't a bossa nova, but I couldn't say no. And I honestly had not played in many years. So I sat down on the throne and I looked and I went, this is my haven't played in many years debut. And I'm looking at, and the MD is Levi Caesar. What on earth is going on here? And so I was undoubtedly horrible. But they just needed to feel the kick. So I just let the kick be where the kick was, and that was that.
Oh, my.
So
2 and 4. Yeah. You would have been fine.
That was it.
Muscle memory is
Don't try to do anything crazy. Just stay right there and leave the backbeat alone, and that was that. So, but I realized at that moment that my life in this podcast was going to lead me into situations where I might be in a room with Levi Caesar.
Have you had him on this?
Not yet.
Oh, he's a great guy. You should hit him up.
I'm going to hit him up again because I hit him up a long time ago, and he was, getting ready to get very busy with, I think, Jody Watley at the time, and so I didn't get him. But we're friends on Facebook, so I hit him up again. So now I'm trying to blow out my own cobwebs, and who knows? Maybe I'll get good enough to play with my dad again.
It's always rewarding.
Yeah.
It always gives back. So I celebrate that.
Well, let's talk about, I would like to talk about the record Conversations.
Okay, awesome.
Because it's 3 years in the making.
A lot of stuff happened.
A lot of life stuff.
A lot of life stuff. Yeah, for almost everybody in the band. Everybody went through something big. And we were talking about having a regular gig. And I can't remember if Darryl touched on this, but, his first record was in a specific place stylistically. It's great. I love that record.
Yeah, it's terrific.
And there was a singer, Nate. You know who she is, right? Nate? She was playing at Q's Lounge every first Friday, and I played with her for many years. And she needed some musicians, and I said we should call Darryl and Aaron Green and George Epps. I'd actually had an ultimatum with her about another musician, but we won't talk about that. I was like, don't call this person, or don't call me, but one or the other. And she called me and those guys, and they came through. And the first night, there's actually a video of it somewhere on Facebook. Dottie from Q's Lounge was like, don't come back here without that band. And so we did First Fridays for a couple of years, and I think that was like a feedback loop for AgapéSoul, that the whole sound of the band changed from being on the bandstand, doing that thing that I talked about, working on arrangements.
Working it out.
Which everybody had already done separately, but we did it together, and it made a more cohesive unit.
Darryl did touch on that.
Yeah.
He didn't talk about the origins, but he did acknowledge that it was that experience and those hours that cemented, in particular, the two of you.
Yep.
And that in that experience, there was a germ of a something, not necessarily an idea, but a notion.
Common ground. Darryl and I are kind of brain twins, which, you might not think on first meeting.
Well, you're practically identical.
Well, his old guitar player and I do get confused by a lot of people.
Huh.
Tal Morris.
I see.
Who that is. Great guitar player. Anyway.
What happened to him that made room for you?
He was touring a ton. I think he was out with Creedence or somebody. He was on the road for a lot of years.
Just busy.
Yeah, and so, Darryl, when I first started playing for his band, there was like 2 or 3 different people had recommended me to him. Good people. But yeah, no, we just hit it off. I don't know, over time,
One of them was Ted Gould, he said.
Yeah, Bliss. And we're working on a record just now, too.
Oh, you're working on Bliss's record?
Oh, my goodness, yeah. There's a track. I'll play to you after this. It's fire.
Wow.
My goodness. Yeah.
You know what? My favorite rendition of Allison is his.
Oh, that video, I recorded that.
I love that so much. Elvis Costello's version, it's good. Bliss's version,
what's interesting about it is I think when we recorded it, we did 4 different takes, and no metronome, just him playing it, and they're virtually identical. Like I didn't need to cut and paste, but at one point I went back and forth, and like his tempo, like the place he plays it is somewhere he really feels in his body, and that's why it sounds like that.
Well, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Because holy cow.
Yeah.
There is a sincerity in his singing, and his singing and the bass on that song are just perfectly married.
And there's a bunch of us who are mad, who are like, dude, why haven't you been singing in bands? Like, he's done some backing vocals. I met him in 2004. That was one of the first connections I made when I started doing the sideman thing. And it's like he never really sung, and we're like, dude, you sound so good. Why have you been sitting on this?
Yeah, really.
We were talking about Darryl, though, and making that record.
Well, he said you guys did a lot of miles and a lot of hours.
Oh, my goodness.
To make this record, and that you guys spent a lot of sleep-deprived nights where you would just come up with some little piece of magic that you would sit and conjure, and he would just be amazed. And he said over and over again, you delivered.
Well, thank you. And the mixing process, Darryl likes a really dense sound. He likes a lot of stuff in there, and I had to find places for it all to live.
Yeah.
And so that requires a lot of really granular engineering and some pretty radical moves at times. The human ear can only hear 3 things at once. You can only discern 3 things. And so because of that, you can really play with pulling things in and out much more than you'd think would sound natural.
So your approach to engineering something that has a lot of parts is to really allow the ear to focus on things in particular.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things you do. I don't know that I would say that. I mean, there's so many different... That's a way to solve a specific problem.
Okay.
Which is like, there's so much interesting stuff. Like, how do you make it all make sense? Which, most of that comes from the arrangement, but when there's the engineering has a huge part to play in that as well, just of shaping how the story is heard. The story's already there and the parts are there, but it's like, oh, look at this and look at that.
Yeah, pulling focus.
Exactly.
Really, sort of for the ear. That's terrific.
It was a wonderful experience, yeah.
And so when you have the parts that you have, first of all, I want to acknowledge a drum solo in the first track of the album.
Yep.
That's bold.
It's just the way it worked out.
Yeah. And then a bass solo in the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow.
Again, the bass solo thing, I think both me and Zoe pushed Daryl to do that because he only took one solo in his first record, and he's like, anytime he solos, it sounds great. And we're like, dude, you should, you're not making a trade show record, but you should step out some because it all sounds phenomenal. So I think both me and Zoe pushed him a little bit, and that's to step out a little bit more.
Is he conservative in the studio? Because in the live environment, he looks like he's not afraid to shine it up a little.
What's interesting for Daryl is when you doing the basic tracking. So we're all together in a room because humans' brains work differently when we all get together. So that's how you get magic. He's in that setting. He's thinking as a producer. He's thinking about the people around him. He's not so much thinking about his part.
Shining on the bass.
Yeah, and so he'll have a part, but then he takes a very reductive approach. So he will take out notes all over the place and be like, okay, this is going to be way better. If there was 5, there might only be 2 at the end. So he crafted every bass line on that record like it started with a lot of stuff, and he whittled it down. It was very influential to me, and I ended up doing a song with a totally different band like a couple months later, and the keyboard player, I'm like, okay, let's really whittle down your part, just like Daryl did his own parts.
Yeah.
So
I do love his brevity.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Huge tone and just, a lot to say with a few notes.
With a few notes, and he makes everything important. You really have to listen hard.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I really enjoyed about the record is that it really does force you to listen hard. And so if we can dissect your engineering for a minute, you do pull the listener in.
Fully.
And if there's something to your burying certain things, now burying's not the right word, but just sort of easing certain presences to accentuate something else. That's what happens, or that's what happened to me, is I got pulled in and I got forced to really make a concerted effort at hearing what was in there. And it's rewarding because it pays off. That's probably the biggest thing about the record. There's a lot of payoff in it. If you're willing to dedicate yourself to listening to it and really digging in, there's plenty of payoff. So
I love that.
Thanks for that.
Oh, thank you. That probably reflects me as a listener as well. I love those kind of records where you're just fully immersed. It's a story. There's like so many different colors.
And you allow yourself to become captivated.
Yep.
Okay. I'm starting to really get the progression of your ability as not just a guitar player, but just your musical experience and what you were looking for as a kid and what you were finding in all those records and how they became your friends. And there's a lot of building blocks there.
I guess, yeah, I didn't even think of it in those
And here they are, revealing themselves. Well, let me ask you this. Did you go to Scotland recently just to go home, or did you go for a musical purpose?
Just to go visit with my parents.
Okay.
Yeah, just to hang out a little bit.
Yeah.
So, no, not a musical purpose at all.
Oh, that's good.
It's funny, I used to go walk my dog by myself in the fields when I was a teenager, and there's now one of the biggest music festivals in Scotland is in those fields.
All right.
I was so mad when I heard about it, though. I was like, if I would have killed for that as a kid.
Yeah.
But, I didn't go for that. Hopefully, it's my secret dream that we'll play that with Daryl's band, but we'll see if that
would be terrific.
Velodrome is what it's called.
But it made you hungry that it wasn't there.
Oh, yeah.
So
ravenous.
Yeah. All right. Well, we never talked about Lyrics Born. You just did a few dates with Lyrics Born.
Yeah, I'm subbing. He has a main guitar player, and so I just subbed. I mean, what a treat to get to play with an artist of that stature, of that creativity. He's phenomenal. So
I'm almost afraid to admit because I'm a fan. I've always liked his work, and I'm a Bay Area guy, and I grew up with Bay Area hip hop and was always attracted to the smart lyricists and wordsmiths, and he's certainly among them. I've never seen him live.
He's phenomenal. He's a powerhouse.
Yeah.
The band, it's like I've never, doing his gig, I had to learn how to jump up and down and play guitar at the same time. I had to practice it.
Just now you learned that?
I've never had to physically jump off the ground. I mean, I tend to rock out and get in power stance, but I had to literally jump like pogo.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn how to do that to go tour with him.
Wow. How many dates did you guys do?
We only did like 4, I think.
Yeah.
It was just a little run, but...
So you learned all those tunes to do 4 dates?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that typically is what happens, that you'll have all the stuff and then you're done. And then like the next day, like whatever complicated line you're struggling with, you'll be like humming it as you brush your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Ask any musician, when we do that cramming, it happens like that.
Yeah. Right. You're still digesting it. You don't even know it.
In turn, it's muscle memory is what you want to happen, but it takes some time for that.
That's terrific, because that's going to inform the next few things that you do in ways that you haven't.
Well, what was interesting about that gig is there was at least 2 of those dates where it was a trio gig. So, on the record, there's horns, there's keys, there's backing vocals. I had to basically decide what to play on guitar, how to support that. So that was pretty interesting.
I have to go see him live.
Oh, you should.
Now, especially that I know that he takes live music with him.
Oh, he's a beast. You should absolutely go.
Terrific. Now what's next?
Well, I'm just working as a producer, working with a lot of different artists, a lot of different styles. That's what I want to do. I want to make records. I am so passionate about just that listening experience you talked about, being drawn in. I still get that with records. Like, there's Casey Musgrave's new record just took over my life for a couple months.
Wow.
It's so sonically perfect. It's so beautifully put together. I'm still like that. So that's what I want to do more than anything else, is make records. It's what makes the most sense in my life.
Is that something that you're attracted to because you're at a point in your life where you want to do some staying home?
No, not so much that. Is that my journey just being a producer, again, self-taught, didn't go to school for it. I did a lot of sessions, and the predominance of sessions, they didn't really handle my guitar right. I'm like, you did that with it? You brought out the ugly frequencies, you put it in this isn't the pretty ambience that I envisioned. And so there was 2 things that happened. One was that I put an ad on Craigslist to play guitar, and a saxophone player from out of town asked me to play guitar in her songs, and I heard him and I'm like, let me fix them first. So I had her send all the stems. I worked out, and I basically taught myself how to start engineering. I had just a laptop. And
Who was the sax player?
I don't want to say her name because then you look up the music. She's not a big deal. She's a local artist out of town, not in the Bay Area.
Local to somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then,
so it wasn't Mindy Abair.
Oh my God, no, it wasn't somebody big. But I had a better vision of what her music should sound like than she did, and it was a really great relationship for both of us. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that happened was I played for this artist, Sandeep, who had this band called Soul Wide World. And actually, that's how I met my girlfriend. We originally were playing that band together, and then years later we got together. But he had one song on his record where I love the song, beautiful lyrics, beautiful harmony, but the rhythm it wasn't really working. Like the drummer's take wasn't the right one. And I heard it, and I'm like, dude, this is a song that people are just going to hit fast forward on, and it deserves something else. So I said to him when we were. And I'd been brought in at the last minute to just do kind of guitar sprinkles. But it's like, that song, dude, we should retrack it and give it a pulse, just like a simple heartbeat that people can relate to. And it became like one of the better songs on the record, a song that really a lot of people latched onto. And after that process, he said to me, dude, you should produce. And that was the start of that. So my current girlfriend and my production career came from that one guy.
Yes.
Not exactly, but the germs of it. And so from there, I've just been, I don't know, like a facilitator. Like the first complete big record I made, which I made out of my house, was a friend who was a singer, and she'd worked on one song with another artist, and he was kind of over the coordination part of it, and I played guitar on it already, and I said, hey, let me help you finish it. And we tracked it all together, and then I tracked her whole record. I made that whole record out of my house. And then that really, I learned so much from working on that, and then I got on to do another record. So at a point where my engineering was, gaining momentum was when, Daryl and I started working on his record. So, it was a perfect time.
Terrific timing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we grew a lot together, us co-producing the record too.
Yeah. And so the opportunity and the point at which your work started to pay off hit at the same time.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, that's terrific. I love stories of serendipitous timing.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And there's been a lot of that in my life. A lot of things have happened that are blessings that I was not responsible for.
Yeah.
So Thanks to God and the universe.
You were persevering.
Yeah, somebody throws you the ball and you can run, but you've got to be throwing the ball first.
That's, okay. You also got to have the legs for it. So there's that. Okay. Well, everybody, first of all, go get the AgapéSoul album, Conversations, where you'll hear Cam, and you'll hear Cam's work as a producer and engineer. And keep your eyes open, because he's all over the Bay Area. He's playing all over the place. You can see him at all kinds of places. You guys are playing Silos coming up pretty soon?
Yep.
That's in Napa.
That's a great venue. We love that. The other project that's like a real heart project to me is Sal's Greenhouse, which is an East Bay funk band.
Okay.
I co-produced the last single, which is called Rock Bottom, and we're playing SF Jazz this Sunday.
Awesome. Who's in that band?
Sally Green is the band leader. She's amazing. Great singer and a baritone sax player. Which
badass. Man. I love a bari sax player. Yeah. And I love a woman who will take on the baritone sax voice.
Well, she also takes on just running the band. She runs a tight ship. Sally's a badass. She's phenomenal, and I love that project.
Sally, come do this podcast.
Oh, you should have Sally for sure. What else? CB, Chris Berger from Alphabet Soup.
Yeah.
His record's just coming out. I mixed that.
I just went to the Mofessionals reunion.
Oh, wonderful.
It was terrific.
I bet.
I'm going to, at some point in the very near future, have Zoe on, and we're going to talk about that. Yeah. I was a huge Mofessionals fan.
Oh, yeah, so many people
God, they were so good. So good.
But yeah, CB, his record comes out next week.
Terrific.
I think it's the 23rd, his record release party.
Okay.
But I mixed that and kind of did a lot of... He made a lot of different songs with different artists, different like producers, musicians, and done a lot of different places. So I did a lot of like gathering and filtering and just getting all the parts together, and then mixed it to play guitar in it. And I was the hugest fan of CB for years. I used to go see Alphabet Soup all the time. He's terrific. And that record is amazing.
Again, a Bay Area wordsmith who just had poignant things to say, and I think it's understated how much hip-hop artists in the Bay Area sort of crafted the sensibilities of a generation of us who were at those shows, and active and activists, and just the way that we did business, and he was certainly in there among them, and I'm glad that he's still after it.
Oh yeah, he is. You're talking about the Bay being responsible for sounds and influences. Here's a story that really messed me up when I heard it. So I was at Rusty Allen's record release, from Sly and the Family Stone, which Levi was playing. Actually, Sally's band opened up for them.
Okay.
So I was backstage with Levi.
That was just last week.
That was a couple weeks ago. And Levi told me, I never thought about this, that Prince's sound came from the Bay.
Sure.
That I never, he was great fans of the Escovedos, that he called a bunch of Sly and the Family Stone's band.
Yeah.
So I don't know enough about the Minneapolis sound to know what came before, in that town.
Uh-huh.
But Prince's thing came from the Bay.
Yeah.
That messed me up when I heard it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, look how many Bay Area musicians like Levi he had. Miko Weaver was from here.
Mm-hmm.
The Sheila, of course. The sound of Sly Stone. Sly Stone was our 100th episode.
Oh.
And you want to talk about something that messed you up. It messed me up to sit across from Sly, and I wanted to get everything out of him that was good that I could. And, he was generous, but what he had was, I know he had more. And that was kind of heartbreaking, but he still gave us a fun episode.
They were so big. Rusty told me we were out in New York together on a gig, and he told me that when he toured with Sly, they would get off the plane and there'd be a separate limo for each band member. That's how big they were rolling. Just wild stuff.
Yeah, craziness. The Bay Area does not get its due for being the influence on popular music that it has been. Or maybe it does. I don't know. I just like to celebrate it because there's a lot of stuff that's not only great but important that came out of here.
I agree.
And I will argue that some of the things that are not only great but important, and we maybe just don't know it yet, include all of the work that you're doing.
I would love for that to be the case.
So please continue to do it. Come back, check in often. Let's do this as often as you figure out something. Let's grab the kernel and turn the mics on and unpack it And thanks for doing this, man.
Oh, I'm so glad we got to get together. This is really fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I feel like we really meandered a bit. I hope it was...
We meandered a lot. I'm sorry I didn't herd you a lot better, but I've had a long day today.
No, that's cool.
And, I'm probably going to listen back to this as I edit it and stick the tags on it and stuff. And I'm going to think, God, I really could have done a better hosting job than that. But you made it really easy because I just got curious about the stuff that you were up to. And sometimes, there's a little bit of structure to this, but not today.
Yeah, there we go.
We were all over the place.
Maybe curiosity is what ties it all together, okay? Because that's what started me with music and just the wide ranges of genres that I like, and where I got to be as a facilitator was all came from curiosity. So that's where we went today. That's the Real Story Ever podcast.
Camp Perridge, everybody. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jon.